so excited about this podcast because it's about a topic I've been thinking about for 20 years, which is, and I'll introduce the guest in a second, but I've always had this fascination. What if I could just buy a bunch of laundromats? I remember when I was working a 9 to 5 jobs, sitting in my cubicle, which was just awful. Like you have to be friends with all the people in the cubicles around you. They're not your real friends, not going to your funeral or anything. And then you have to share the bathroom with them. I just didn't like working that job. And I always thought to myself, what if I could buy a laundromat? Which sounds odd. Or what if I could buy a check cashing place or even a furniture store or something like a real place that wasn't just ones and zeros, but a real place. And then what if I could buy two of them or three of them and you know save on the back end accounting costs because I own more than one, and then I own a whole bunch, and then I sell that for a lot of money. And then I was just always thinking, oh, but I can't do that. I'm just a lowly programmer or whatever. How would I have no money in the bank? How would I raise the money? So I was talking to this friend of mine, Carl Allen, runs a private equity firm, buys and sells companies like they're nothing. And he was telling me, well, you can do this now. You could be an individual with little to no money, not working a 9 to 5 job. You could. It's not. There's so many opportunities now to basically buy a business, use that to buy the second business, use those two to buy the third and the fourth. Here's the ways you save money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, Carl, you have to come on the podcast. He's not Suzanne Summers, but that's okay. And welcome aboard, Carl.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Carl, I love your accent.
Thank you.
And so you have a private equity firm that's already doing this for yourself. You
Absolutely.
buy companies, bricks and mortar companies,
Yep.
and I'm sorry I'm not giving you any chance to speak, but I've had my first experience with this. I bought a kind of a bar slash comedy club a few years ago. It's difficult to run. Okay, I bought it for other reasons than financial, but it's difficult to run a bricks and mortar business. I kind of like the idea of some of these businesses that are more cookie cutter, and I know I don't want to degrade laundromats, but I always think laundromats is a little bit more cookie cutter than a restaurant where you have to figure out how to get people in off the street and love the food and blah blah blah. But anyway, what do you do first?
So I do two things. So I'm buying businesses all the time. There's a massive opportunity in the United States right now. There's over 2 million small businesses for sale. Only 1 in 11 are actually going to close deals in the next 12 months.
What do you mean closed deals?
So only 1 in 11 will sell.
And let me ask you this: there's 2 million businesses. Here's some bullshit that I think people always say, which is that 90% of businesses fail. I don't believe that. I think that's true for 90% of businesses that raise money in Silicon Valley. They fail because the venture capitalists are pushing the accelerator to try to make $1 trillion company in three
Yep.
weeks. But if you start a laundromat we'll get to buying versus starting in a second, but if you have a laundromat in a good location, what's the basic odds of the basic bricks and mortar simple business that everyone uses? People are going to dress every day for the rest of eternity. What's the odds that a basic business is going to fail?
I think something like that, it's the odds of it failing are going to be quite low. But if you look at a high tech business or a medical business or anything in financial technology, the risks are obviously a lot higher. But I think these brick and mortar, these everyday businesses like the 7-Eleven, the gas station,
A
um,
car wash.
the car wash, the check cashing place, the laundromat, the grocery store, in those local little neighborhoods, those are businesses that going to be around for a long time.
Yeah,
But
this thing about car washing, I mean, now I don't know, maybe automated cars will make things different, but those cars are still gonna need to be
they
cleaned.
are.
But you put a car wash right next to the tunnel or the bridge, so as cars get into the city or they're going back home, and they gotta wash the car. It's dirty here,
Yeah.
and it just never goes away. Again, a laundromat. People are always gonna need to clean their clothes, and they're busy, so they go to the laundromat. What are some other these types of businesses?
So I love the idea of these automatic businesses that you talked about that need little to no, kind of management. Because one of the things that I do when I'm buying a business is I own 9 businesses today. I don't work in any of them. I've got GMs or employees in those businesses running them for me because I'm more of an owner, not an operator. So I don't want to go in there every day and be rolling up my sleeves. And people that I teach and I coach to do this, they're buying businesses to go in and run them if they want, but you don't have to. So it's a bit like a side hustle that you can buy a business, it's throwing off cash flow, You don't have to be there every day. You can just benefit from the business ownership.
And I wanna figure out how to buy a business and how to value a business and how to buy a business as cheaply as possible, and also how to buy a business if you don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
But and by the way, I'm not saying people should do this. I'm not promoting this. This is what I wanted to do
Yeah.
forever. And heck, I still might do it. I just love the idea of this. But what's better? Starting, and I'm gonna just you put a laundromat in quotes. The laundromat means one of these kind of simple bricks and mortar, semi-automated businesses that are in every city on the entire planet.
Yeah.
So, but laundromat in quotes because it represents a lot of kinds of businesses. But is it better for me to start a laundromat or spend money
No.
buying a laundromat where I'm risking some money?
Absolutely. Never start, always buy.
Never start.
Never start, always buy, because it's going to take you a whole bunch of time to find a place, fit it out. It's going to cost you a lot more money in terms of that startup cost. Versus if you can buy a business, and I know you can, without investing your own money, you're instantly getting a business that's generating cash flow. And my analogy is like a Tesla or any car. Most people buy and own cars. So if you wanted to own a Tesla, would you go and buy all the parts, the glass, the wheels, the battery, the big iPad in the center, the steering wheel, and would you go and assemble it all on your driveway and think, right, how do I build this sucker? How do I connect all this stuff together? I've paid for all the parts. How does it work? Or do you drive? You go down to the dealership and you buy one that someone else has built and you finance it through Tesla.
I love this analogy. First off, if I was going to buy a Tesla, I'd first have to get a driver's license, which the state of New York currently won't allow me to do. But I love the analogy because what you're basically saying is, let's say I wanted to start a laundromat. Do I? I don't know anything. I don't know what the best machines to buy are. I don't know if I don't know what I need to get enough water in there, enough power in there, and I don't know the right location for laundromats. But if I go down the street and I see a laundromat, and if I'm able to look at their financials and I
Yeah.
see, oh, this business is going up, it's not falling
Why
apart.
wouldn't you buy that business versus starting
Right.
your own?
It's as if I've outsourced, just like you outsource the development of a car to the car manufacturer. It's as if I've outsourced somebody smarter than me picking the location, and we know location, location, location for
Yeah.
bricks and mortar business. I've outsourced someone smarter than me buying all the equipment. Outsourced someone smarter than me setting up all the initial marketing, the launch, the advertising, and keeping the customers happy. And
Yeah.
I'm just buying this infrastructure for them. Why would they want to sell to me?
So, lots of different reasons. People want to retire. They get sick. Some people, they die in some cases, and not just them, their family members. They get bored. They get frustrated. 19.9 million baby boomers own businesses in the United States. It's unbelievable. It's 66% of the entire small and medium business population. And 10,000 of them are retiring every single day.
Well, it's I was doing some research about Andrew Yang actually, and Andrew Yang had mentioned that something like 95 million people have dropped out of the workforce in the past 15 years, and that
Wow.
but that rung true to me in a way that he didn't explain, which is that that corresponds with the first baby boomers hitting the age of 65
Yeah.
or 60. So and then I looked it up, and about half of those people who have withdrawn from the workforce were, in fact, baby boomers retiring.
Yeah.
And so I think about this because it's a similar thing in real estate. If you say you want to buy a house from someone where maybe the person living there just died, so the family wants to get rid of it quick,
Yep.
or there's a divorce, so they don't know how to divide up a laundromat, so
Yep.
they have to sell it, or disease, they no longer are able to have the energy to keep going to the business,
Yep.
or debt. They somehow or other they got into too much debt
Yep.
somehow, and they need to sell the business. You added a a fifth one, which I don't know how to put a D to it, but retirement,
Yeah, and it's all about
impending death.
yeah,
So
and it's all about understanding what I call seller psychology. So what we're looking for really is a what I call a distressed seller of a good business, not the other way around. If you go to Biz Buy Sell or some of the online broker websites, you find lots of good sellers of distressed businesses. You don't want to buy those.
right, you wanna I mean, just a basic thing is when you're buying a business, you're obviously at some point in the due diligence going to see their financials.
Yeah.
You kinda wanna see 3 years worth of financials
Yep.
month by month, and then see that the business has been going up in both revenues
Yep.
and
Cash flow.
revenues per product
Yep.
sold and maybe unique customers.
Yep,
So
absolutely. You want a good business that's got revenues and revenue growth. It's generating cash flow, and it's got a healthy balance sheet. And then it's all about. It's not really about the numbers. Small deals are 10% numbers and 90% psychology. Back 20 years ago, when I worked just down the street for a Wall Street investment bank, the deals that I used to get involved with were 90% numbers and 10% psychology. But when you look at the small business owner, it's really understanding, what's motivating them. And one of the most common things that we see, and I see this 10 times a day with companies that I'm looking at, is the owner of that business, they can't afford to retire just yet. They don't want to go into work anymore. They don't want to go in and run the business anymore, but they want to enjoy the cash flow that they're currently enjoying from that business. And the term for that is called seller financing. So you can buy a business from somebody. You're not giving them any money down. They're not necessarily interested in that. You're paying them a monthly income. You're basically splitting the profits of the business in the future with you as the owner.
so wait, so let me try to understand. So and by the way, I want to throw in I don't think restaurants belong in your category
No.
because restaurants often
Mm.
depend on the Rolodex of the owner to get in
Yeah.
the customers and media. And if you don't have that Rolodex and you don't have that pizzazz of the owner, you might not. It's not as automated as
No.
and brand neutral as a car wash or a laundromat or a check cashing place or any of these an arcade. Well, I'm thinking of as a kid as an arcade, but a whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Restaurants are not one of my favorite types of businesses. I've actually never purchased and owned one, but unless you're a really good chef and you really know how a restaurant works, I certainly wouldn't buy one.
unless I've seen people do, we talked about this earlier. I've seen people do like kind of, buy Domino's franchises because that's as
Yeah.
automated as a restaurant can be.
Yeah.
But but let's again, I'm putting laundromat in quotes because there's 1,000 businesses that fit this category, but that's the business that comes to mind. Uh, so someone owns it, and let's say someone works there, but it's not the owner. So the person who works there is getting minimum wage, a little bit of minimum wage, just to make sure nobody's getting into no one's stealing a machine, no one's getting into fights, everyone's getting their basic needs taken care of,
Yep.
and just keeping an eye on things.
Yep.
And then also, I don't know what else, whatever else they do. And then there's an owner who basically takes the profits, which is the maintenance cost. He's already bought the machines, but it's the maintenance cost, it's the rent, it's the utilities, and it's the employment cost minus minus the employment costs, and then that profit each year goes to that owner.
That's right.
Let's say he gets 100,000 a year from the laundromat. I'm making this up. I don't know what a laundromat owner expects or makes or whatever. In the stock market world, you usually value things at 20 times profits, give or take. That's a totally
Yeah.
rough number. We're just making that up, but that's like, let's say your basic nuts and bolts company sells the S&P 500 itself sells for 20 times earnings. So
Yep.
$100,000 a year profit laundromat might sell for 2 million. Is that correct or
No,
incorrect?
no, no, no. No. So the reason the stock market has got those types of earnings is because, and those PE ratios, is there's a lot more liquidity in that market.
Hmm.
And then obviously those businesses are huge. They've got systems, processes, management, all that different stuff. The small business, the average multiple of earnings for a small business is just less than two. It was 1.94
What?
in
So a hundred
2019.
thousand dollar a year earning
Yep.
business, like net income after not revenues. Maybe the
Yep.
revenues are a
Net
million,
income
but net income
is
business, a
worth
hundred
around
thousand.
200K.
But I think about this in terms of, risk reward, and you always get back to the basic math of risk reward, which is that uh, a T-bill, a treasury bill is the safest investment and returns 1% or 2% a year, whatever it is right
Yep.
now. And you're telling me I can put $200,000 into an investment, pretend it's a treasury bill for a second instead of a
Yep.
laundromat, and you're telling me I can make 50% a year as opposed to 1% a year.
You can make more than that because you wouldn't, if you were buying that business for a two times multiple for 200,000, I wouldn't let you put $200,000 into that deal. I'd show you how to structure a deal where you might pay 50 down and you could even finance that from a bank. And then you're paying the 150 over a number of years to that seller in deferred seller finance payments.
Okay,
So
so
your ROI is a lot higher because your initial investment, it could be infinite. If you're not, the last deal that I closed, I didn't invest any of my own money. So my ROI on that deal is infinity in theory.
right. So we're gonna get to that.
And that's a
So
leverage buyout.
so I'm sitting in my cubicle. Let's say I'm 28 years old,
Yep.
and I'm like, ugh, get me out of here. Whatever. Uh, by the way, not that all jobs are bad. I'm not. It's just for some people they are, some people they aren't. But this what I like about this is because it's not just I'm gonna buy a laundromat and then go on the golf course and do nothing. If you do it once, you could do it twice, you could do it times. You combine things, you get it's the classic what's called a roll up. You combine the back office
You
costs, like the
do.
cost of accounting, you get price leverage on
Yep.
equipment, and then you could sell it for potentially a much higher multiple. You could grow earnings and you could sell it for a higher multiple when it's bigger
Yeah.
to a larger company that's already in the business in a much bigger way. But how do I find a good business for sale?
Yeah, they're all over. So the biggest way to find deals is to network. So who do you know? And build
I don't know
relationships.
anybody.
Of course you do. And build relationships with what I call deal intermediaries. So
Dealer intermediaries.
yeah, so network with CPAs, tax advisors, network with wealth managers, small business attorneys, even banks and financiers, because they're all in the mix. They all know businesses that potentially are for sale. Most people that want to sell a business will talk to those individuals before they will go down the route of, say, listing with a business broker. Only about 20% of businesses that sell get listed through a broker. Most deals get passed through
Like
a
friends or
physical
friends of
network.
friends.
Yeah,
By the way, that's the same way, that's the same way how most jobs are found. So most
yeah,
jobs are found not by applying on a site, although many millions of jobs are found that way. But often, if I were to be unemployed, it's not your friends who find you the next job, but the friends of friends tend to
yeah,
statistically find you the next job. So it sounds like it's kind of similar. But let's say I'm 20 years old or 33 years old. I want to change. Uh, I probably have an accountant doing my taxes. You say network, but I really didn't have a network at the age of 28. Maybe I had an accountant doing my taxes, although I probably didn't, knowing me. But uh, call my accountant and say, hey, I might have some interest. I might have some opportunity. I might have some wherewithal. Do you have any clients with what you consider a decent business
yeah.
for sale? And it's his incentive to help me find a good one
Absolutely, because he'll
because
work for you and help you.
and he's also helping his client who might
That's
have a
right.
good business. And I can ask, does he have one of these 4Ds? Or,
Yeah,
does he have a real, is it a good business? Do he have a good psychological reason to sell that makes sense as opposed to a distressed business? But okay, so I call my accountant and or that's one networking. What do I get? Like 5 accounts? How do I network a little bit
yeah.
more?
Speak to banks. Speak to attorneys. Wealth managers are a
But
phenomenal
why would they I'm 28 years old. Why would they I mean, I'm pretending to be, but why would they talk to
because
me?
you're in the market to buy a company. So you have to come across as trustworthy, obviously incredible. Try and buy a business in a sector that you're passionate about or you know it and you understand it. And that translates. The wealth manager, they're in the business of investing their clients' money. So maybe not with a laundromat, but if you're buying a $3 million engineering company, or you're buying a transport business or a construction company, and that business owner who's looking to retire or leave is going to generate, 7 figures when they sell the business. The wealth manager's highly motivated to want to invest that money because that's how they make
Right, so he
money in the
wants
world.
the client to sell because that client gets
Absolutely.
allocated over. But my first time out, 28 years old, probably not gonna buy a seven-figure business, but maybe I can make an appointment at the local bank, on the corner, the Chase Bank, go to the private client section and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
can I have an appointment? Can I talk to you for a few minutes? This is something I'm interested in. Do you know of anybody who can help me?" Maybe something like that. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
work through in my mind how I would have done it back in
Yeah.
the day.
So my advice is just network. Be a power networker. Talk to as many people as you can. Leverage the power of social media. Post on LinkedIn or on Facebook. Who do you know? Just broadcasting on LinkedIn that
Yeah.
you're looking to buy and own a company. Here's my specific requirements. I want to buy a web design firm in Chicago.
Don't do that. I ran a web design firm. It's
So did
awful.
yeah, so did I. Bad example. So just leveraging the power of social media. When I started in this business, gosh, 27 and a half years ago, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Google. Yeah, there were business brokers and corporate finance firms that you would connect with, but all the best deals I've ever done and all the best deals that my hundreds of students have ever done have come through networking. It's who you know, because it's
It,
a people business. It's a relationship business that we're in. Businesses are sold between, in most cases in our market, the 1 to 10 million range or maybe a bit less, one individual to another individual.
well, it's interesting. I just had a podcast about the power of asking your network, and I totally forgot because I was putting myself too much in the mind of when I was 28. But in social media, on Facebook and in LinkedIn, there are many groups of you can join
There are.
with small business owners, and you can, if you spend a few weeks or months engaging in conversations, providing value,
Yep.
people know who you are, and then suddenly you say, "Hey, I have an ask. This is a great place to ask for help," and people are happy to help. They're helping you, and it's the same thing. They're helping the other people. So, okay, let's say I've got my mind on a particular laundromat, and I'm doing all the basic due diligence, and it seems like a good business. We don't have to go about this. Doesn't have to be an episode about due diligence, but there's basic aspects of due diligence.
Yeah.
And but you see, okay, their business is improving, or it's at least plateauing. It's not going down. So that means the location's pretty good. Means the equipment's pretty good. It means they're not losing any brand value. Um, they're making. They've made a solid 200,000 a year income after all costs. The owner has taken 200,000 out. He doesn't work there, so it's not salary. It's just 200,000 profit. And now for whatever reason, and you determine it's a good reason, he or she wants to sell. What's my next step?
So the first thing is to really identify what's the seller motivation. Why do they want to sell, and what does that mean?
They
You know,
want to move to California from New
yeah,
York.
great. So the first thing I would establish is, how much is the legacy of that business important to them? Because most of the sellers that I meet, probably about 80%, their legacy and the business that they've built and the safeguarding of their employees and their reputation in the marketplace is worth more than the physical money
Really?
that they're receiving. And when people talk about money that's received, and we talked about valuations before, the valuation of a business is really that fine line, that dividing point between what someone's prepared to pay and sell it for. But also, what's more important than the actual physical number is the structure of the deal. Like I said before, that businesses are generally selling for around 2 times earnings at that kind of level. Would I pay 3 times earnings for a business if I could pay for it over 5 years? Absolutely. Because even if I don't grow the business, I'm still going to make money and still pay for the business over time. So it's all really drilling down as deep as you can into that core seller motivation. Like, what are they really looking for? If they're looking to move to California and only 1 in 11, 1 in 12 businesses actually sell, the number one exit strategy for a small business owner in this country is to close the doors and turn off the lights. And when I'm negotiating with a small business owner and I make them an offer and a structure, and they say, well, okay, you know what, I could probably get the same amount of money if I just close my business down and I liquidate my balance sheet. Well, not really.
You mean like sell the machines and
Yeah, so if you own a business and you've got $1 million worth of assets and you've got $800,000 of liabilities, and you think, well, I'll sell all my assets and I'll pay off all my liabilities, I'm going to net 200K. You won't. You'll actually lose money because you won't get 100% on the dollar when you sell your assets, but you have to pay 100% on the dollar when you're settling your liabilities. So in a lot of cases, for a small business owner, it's more expensive for them to shut the business down and walk away than just give you the business. Just say, there you go, take over the keys. I've got a lease on the property. I've got some payables.
how do you convince them if they think that they could sell the assets for 1,000,000? You say, probably not. Like, how do you convince them that?
Talk to your CPA,
Mhm.
and they'll tell you what your fire sale liquidation value is of those assets. But I'd ask a different question. I'd say, how important is it for you to retire and then seeing your business that you founded and you built and you've sweated blood building that business? How important is it for you to see that business grow and continue to prosper? And in a lot of cases, it's like they're selling, like giving their children away. They want to see it thrive and survive. The number of sellers that I've met that care more about their name staying above the door than they do about the amount of money they're getting, it's crazy. It's all about pride. It's all about psychology. And a lot of it's about ego. Um, in a lot of ways. But that's what's driving the small and medium business market, and the number of businesses that are going to try and change hands in the next 20 years is going to be staggering in this country. It's
So
going to be
And
unbelievable.
instead of trying to convince them of liquidation value or anything like that, it's again good business, distressed or motivated seller. It just might not be the deal you pursue.
right, but a good business, you want a good business with a motivated so by the way, that was Adam Markley, who's partners with Carl in their private equity firm. You want a good business with a motivated seller. So like maybe there's a again, like we just said, a divorce, or he's moving, or he's retiring, or she, or whatever.
Yep.
And um
Yeah, for every business where you've got someone who's not motivated because they think their assets are worth 10 times what they
Move
actually
on.
are, you just move on because there's far more businesses with
right.
people who are
Yeah.
motivated, right? So it's
You have to be
like
able to walk away from the negotiation.
always.
Yeah, and it's a numbers game. So I would never recommend you go and you look at one laundromat. Go and find 10. Go and have 10 conversations. And then two or three of those are going to be the people that are really super motivated and are going to want to do a favorable deal. And a favorable deal is you're buying that business without investing your own money. That's really the goal of what we're looking to do. And that's that's what the guys do on Wall Street. I used to be one of them. They buy businesses and don't spend any of their own money. And we're just we've perfected that methodology for the small and medium businesses in this country. And it's not about capitalism to a degree. It's about there's a major problem in this country that you've over 2.2 million small businesses for sale today. Only 1 in 11 will sell. But on the other side, 6.6 million Americans last year started a brand new company. And whether there's some debate in what percentage of those fail, is it 90%, is it 60%, or maybe somewhere in between? For me, I just think that's foolish when rather than reinventing the wheel, you can go and buy an existing business that
Existing
someone
business
has
that
built and it's
it's been around for
generating
20
cash
years
flow from
maybe.
day one.
But that's why you have to pay for it. I could start a business in some cases with $0,
Yeah.
but with this, I have to pay. So
You can
again,
buy a
let's
business
say
for $0.
I'm a secretary at Procter and Gamble. I always pick Procter and Gamble. I'm sorry, I use Crest toothpaste. I love you, but be a sponsor of my podcast.
I love it too.
But I don't, the average American doesn't have any savings or has little savings. What do I do? How do I, and I see a laundromat's for sale. The guy wants to retire. It's a good
Sure.
business. Nothing's wrong. I've gone through the numbers. My account's gone through the numbers. Um, let's say I negotiate and there's 100,000 in profit, but or 200,000 profit. I could buy it for 600,000. Um, Again, how do I negotiate so that it's nothing? I want to spend no
Yeah.
money.
So the
Sorry, just to jump in, the key to remember in all of this, and we're talking a ton of negotiations, is like in the small business market, sub 10 million in revenues, the buyers always have the leverage.
I guess that's right
Because
because
most sellers, the main option is to shut the doors
and walk
and
away.
walk away. So you as a buyer, you have the leverage. And if you remember that, it changes the entire framework.
okay, but given that I have the leverage and given that most businesses are willing to walk away, can I wait until they walk away and then
No.
but just buy everything for
Well, you
pennies on the
can,
dollar?
but my advice to you would be don't just go and look at one laundromat. Go and look at 5 or go and look at 10 and have those conversations. And inside of that mix of business owners, there'll be 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 that they're prepared to sell you that business and you can pay them over time. They don't need the money paid to them at closing because a laundromat is a kind of a weird example because there's not a lot of assets typically in that company. They might own the machines, but if they're really old, you probably can't finance them, or they probably lease them, which I think is the more common thing to do. So that type of business is going to be asset light but cash flow rich. And whilst you can get a line of credit from the bank on the strength of that cash flow, why would you do that if the owner is so motivated to sell and move to California or do whatever they want to do?
Or a better example might
Pay them
be
over time.
since that owner can just go to California and still get the cash.
Absolutely.
So a better example might be if there's a divorce or a death in the family, the kids are just liquidating the
Yeah.
business, and you find them, the accountant introduces you, and you say, "Look, you're either gonna close and you have nothing, or I'm willing to take this over
Yeah.
and pay you out over time, and you get more, than even if you had stayed running the business because I'm planning
Yeah.
on growing it
Yeah.
and blah blah blah."
Yeah, there's something to be said for income versus, capital because if you did buy that business 100% money down and you use your own money, which I wouldn't advise you to do, the seller's going to put that $200,000, probably going to put it in the bank. So what are they going to get? 1%, 2%? It's 0.5 in the UK. Not can't remember what it is over here now. But instead, if you're paying them over time and maybe you're giving them a 5 or 10% interest coupon on that money, that's a really nice regular income.
So right, so I could say, listen, um, I'm buying it today. Let's say it's a $200,000 profit,
Yeah.
and I'm paying 3 times, which is for you an above average
Oh
multiple.
yeah.
So I'm paying 600,000, but in a sense, it's as if I am borrowing it from the owner,
Yeah.
and it has a 5% interest, which is
Yeah.
again bigger than the 2% they would get in the bank. So
Yeah.
ultimately, 5% over 3 years, maybe I'm paying 660,000,
Yep.
for the total price when
Yep.
you throw in the interest. So they wouldn't have gotten that with their money, but they're gonna
No.
get the full amount within 3 years. This is a business, is a safe business. They could do due diligence on me and see
Yep.
I'm competent, but
Yep.
in any case, they have employees running the business,
That's right.
and there's other employees out there. Um, and so I say, "Okay, do I offer to give the money down?" I mean, obviously, that's the best, but what if I can't do that?
Yeah. So if the business has got assets or it's got strong cash flows and you can leverage that through financing, then the more money that you can put down on a deal, the less you're going to pay over time. Because
Do
the
banks lend money on that? Like, banks like to
yeah,
give 30-year mortgages on houses because it's the same as the other 1,000 30-year mortgages they're giving. They bundle that up into a mortgage
yeah.
bond. Do they really like giving 3-year loans to a 28-year-old for a laundromat?
If they see value in you as a potential business owner and you've got the chops to go in and tackle that industry, absolutely. But the more common type of financing is what we call asset-based financing, where more in a B2B type business, if it's got accounts receivable, if it's got fixed assets, if it's got inventory.
So what are
Uh,
those kinds of businesses?
so
I
like
keep
a
putting laundromat in quotes, but what are some other
an
ones?
engineering company or a manufacturing company or a PR firm or an advertising agency or a software company, if they've got, if they're a business to business, if they're selling to other businesses, they'll have outstanding invoices. And that's really the rocket fuel for leverage buyouts because that's the quickest, easiest, cheapest form of
But
financing to buy a company.
But a PR firm or an ad agency, it's that saying, "Your assets walk out the door every night." So if the owner leaves, that's not a
So a great example is like a construction company
Yeah.
that's doing typically $500,000 jobs, right? You're putting in the sidewalks in a new development or on city streets or something like that. You're bidding for a project, you're getting the project. That's a big job, and you'll have substantial assets there. You'll have accounts receivable. You'll have the actual equipment.
meaning whatever building is being built, they owe me money.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
And then you've got equipment that you're actually doing and working with that has some value.
But isn't the owner gonna be the main sales guy for ongoing jobs?
Depends on the company itself, right? So a lot of times they're not. They've got a salesperson, and if they don't, as part of the deal, you negotiate a transition
Hmm.
period in which you bring in a sales guy who's trained by the owner, and they're the ongoing sales.
Or you could say the price goes down if people don't renew contracts or whatever.
You can build all that stuff in, but it's interesting. One of the common themes we see all the time is most businesses we look at in the kind of 1 to 10 million range do little to no marketing. There's the two questions I ask every business owner. Number one, why are you selling? What's your motivation? Which we've covered. And number two, what's your marketing strategy? How do you win new business? And they say, you know what, Carl, this is what's great about my business. We don't do any marketing. It's all repeat customers and word of mouth referrals. And I love those deals because as soon as we buy them, we can scale and we can put marketing into those businesses. Adam and I were acquiring an e-learning technology company in Texas right now, and that business does 48 hours of marketing per year, and it does
why? Is
$3 million a year
because they're just selling to colleges the software and then just maintaining their subscription.
One conference a year
for 2 days.
for 2 days.
And who buys, like colleges or high schools or
It's all like Fortune 1000 companies that are clients.
and
So the opportunity there is if you think crazy and outside the box, what happens if you go from 48 hours to 96? You just double it.
right
What
or
happens to your ability to win business?
and they're probably selling subscriptions per seat. What if you just add $1 a month to the subscriptions every year? Your earnings go up. You
Absolutely.
know,
But the secret to that deal, and we talked about it before, it's the seller psychology, it's the owner psychology. The owner's early 60s, made a lot of money, built a really good business, but doesn't want to shoot for the moon, doesn't want to bet the ranch, doesn't want to become the next $1 billion company.
he
Is
can't
happy
sell
with his
to a public e-learning company for 20 times.
no, too
Mm,
small.
mm,
So if you're a public e-learning company, why would you buy, if you're a $1 billion company, you're not going to buy a $3 million company. You're going to
mm.
buy a $2 to $500 million company. It takes the same amount of time to do a $3 million deal than it does to do a $200 million deal. In fact, it's easier the bigger the actual transaction. Um, so there's a big role out there for people, and you talked about roll-ups to go in, and no big corporate's going to buy up all these little individual businesses. It's for people like us to go out and scoop them all together, extract all those back office cost savings, and get them to a decent enough size where it then becomes attractive for a larger business. It's like the fish. The small fish get eaten by the next size up of fish. The big shark's not going to go and eat the tiny little fish. It's the same
So kind of the goal
same in the
is
M&A world.
the kind of the goal is long term for this 30-year-old secretary is buy that first business that has recurring revenue of some sort, whether it's subscription based for software or bricks and mortar
Yeah.
laundromat company, and then use cash flows from that, borrow from the bank, buy the second business, buy the third business, buy the
Yep.
fourth business, and suddenly you're the bigger company that now the big fish could
Yep.
pay. The bigger you are, it sounds like the higher the
Yep.
multiple. So then,
That's right.
and the bigger you are, the more profits you'll make because you get
Yep.
the back office costs is combined and pricing leverage and better terms on
You've nailed it.
leases.
Yep.
And so then you can get the bigger multiple
That's
too
right.
when you sell. So that's kind of a path to
That's
wealth.
right. And let me tell you a really quick story about one of my students that did exactly that I mentored. He was an optician and he wanted to buy the optical business that he was working in. So he did a leverage buyout, bought the business, paid the seller over time, and then got itchy feet and bought another one, then another one, then another one. Now he owns 73 of those businesses. And his model is phenomenal because if you look at, you can apply this to any business, but particularly like a healthcare services business, like an optical company, is that there's a lot of on-site one-off costs. You've got to pay for your accountant, you've got to pay HR, you've got to pay IT, you've got to pay insurance. You're paying a certain price for frames. You're paying a certain price for lenses. When you own 5 of them or 10 of them, those costs go way down. So he can typically acquire a company putting it into dollars, say $1 million of revenue, making 100,000 a year. Within 12 months, he's probably doing 1.3 to 1.4 on the top line because he's putting marketing strategies in there. But his bottom line's going from 100 to say 450 because he's pulling all of that one-off cost out into a back office. And then when he's buying 10 times the number of eyeglass frames, he's obviously paying a lot less. Like the laundromat example, he's paying a lot less money for the supply of all those different materials.
How did he buy that first business?
100% seller finance deal.
So the guy was retiring.
Yep.
And he said, what did he pay for let's say he was doing 100,000. What did he pay?
He was paying just under a 3 times multiple. This is a UK business. I think the multiples are they're a little bit higher in the
So he was
UK.
paying like 200, he paid 280,000 for like $100,000
Yep.
in income. How did he put any money down?
Nope.
So he said, "Hey, I'll pay you over 3 years.
Yep. It's over 4, I think.
Let's say I'll pay you over 4 years. I'll give you 10% interest.
Yep.
So it's 280,000 plus the 10% interest each year.
Yep.
And so whatever that turned out to be, the interest gets smaller and smaller as he pays it off. And then He's got the cash flow. He's still making money because he had a job. He was the optician in the first place.
That's
So he's
right.
still making his salary, and then he can use the profits to finance putting down money and getting bank financing
That's right.
on the second optical business, and now he's in business.
Yep. It's just a
And
snowball
how
effect.
did he increase the marketing?
So he just put social media in there, started running Facebook ads, started doing, Google ads and other forms of that type of advertising. But the absolute key to his strategy was that when he bought that optical business and all the other ones he's bought since, he's kept the original name of the company. And that's a massive USP for the retiring optician that probably founded that store in the 1970s, say, and he can walk past or drive past every day knowing that his business is thriving and he's now part of a larger group.
So what other optician business actually does seem like a great business. I mean, my gut instinct was, oh, what if all the opticians leave, but then just hire new opticians.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and because I guess that's what he did when he wasn't at all the other 73
Yeah.
locations. There's already a general manager in place.
Yeah.
Or if the owner leaves, the owner obviously was taking a salary and you calculate profits after the owner's salary, but you put in a GM who
Yeah.
makes less than the prior owner. So that's one way to increase profits. But so there's laundromats, there's opticians, not
Chiropractors,
chiropractors.
gyms,
Oh yeah, gyms is a good
gymnasiums.
one. Are gyms dependent on brand?
Gymnasiums,
Yeah.
not really. I think they're dependent on location and obviously whatever services they provide to their customer base. There's some massive roll-ups going on in the gymnasium sector. So one of my students in the UK, he's bought, I think, 4 gyms. So, and even with just 4 locations that you buy, there's still a lot of synergies that you can pull out of that type of deal. But again, a lot of these businesses do little to no marketing. So whatever business you buy, if you could put some marketing energy
Yeah.
into that business, then
Or
you're
offer
gonna
new services.
you're gonna
Yeah.
make money.
So
Yeah.
are pawn shops good?
Um,
Or
I don't see why not. I've
Mhm,
never acquired one.
mhm.
But another great strategy is once you bought your first business, when you do a bolt on acquisition, you can do roll ups like we talked about. But let's say you go and buy a software company and then you think, well, what do all of my customers consume that I don't provide? Okay, IT services. So if you buy an IT services company, you can then sell the software to those customers. You can sell their services to your customers. So you get this cross
Or
selling of
or
revenues. You're saving costs when you meld these two businesses together. So it's a 1 + 1 = 3 on the revenue side, and it's a 1 + 1 = 5 on the cash flow side. So that's a great way to make money.
yeah, or let's say you sell an e-learning company to or let's say you buy an e-learning company that has elementary schools as a customer.
Yep.
Right now you can buy a software company that I don't know, keeps track of, you know, all the kids' grades, so parents can see like some kind of CRM
Yep.
company, and then just
Yeah.
piggyback that on
Yeah.
to the
You
customers
could
of
even
the
buy a furniture company and
yeah,
you're
like for
selling all the
chairs.
furniture into
Yeah,
the schools,
yeah,
or a chalk company. I don't think they have. It's 40 something years ago since I was at elementary school. So I don't know what they use now, but it was chalk when I was there.
yeah. I don't
But
know what they use either.
yeah, and it's all about just looking at your business and your customer base and thinking, well, what else do they need? What else do they consume that I don't currently provide? And back to the car example, I'm not going to develop those products and services internally. I'll either go and partner with somebody else, or why don't I go and buy a business that does that, and then I can capture all of that margin and all of that value.
I think there's a couple of critical things. One is what you were saying about um, identifying businesses for sale, and I think we talked about the basics. Use your network, use your accountant, but I'm sure there's a lot more details,
Yeah,
and we could get into it. Then there's valuing a company. How do you value a company in this industry? How do you value the assets they have? You could use the CPA, but it's good to have some knowledge yourself. And then you said too, what is the motivation of the seller? You have to be really careful because there's always a good reason and a real reason. Oh, I'm getting older, I want to retire. The real reason is I'm not sure how car washes are going to do when there's only 1/3 of the cars on the road because of automation.
yeah,
So you have to be very careful there. Then there's the financing because um, it's everything from seller financing to bank financing to maybe there are firms that specialize in special financing that might have more, higher interest rates and so on,
Yep.
like venture debt
Yep.
financing or even financing like your firms.
Yeah.
Then there's the negotiation techniques and principles, like how do I know all the things to negotiate, because sometimes you want to have a bigger list than the other person so you can give
Receive
them the
more.
nickels while you take the dimes.
Absolutely.
So for instance, we'll keep your name up front that might have a monetary value that you didn't realize.
Yeah.
We're going to keep all your employees hired until they die, whatever. That might have a value to them so they feel loyal and so on, and that's all part of it. But there's lots of details here. I feel like we kind of touched the surface,
Yep.
and you mentioned you coached this optician to buy 73
Yep.
places. Presumably he could sell that for 10 million, make $10 million profit on that or more compared to what he started with.
Yep.
How did you coach him? Like, you have a thing? What's your thing?
Yeah, so I have a system called the Dealmaker CEO. So it's a 10-step system. It's my 27 years of deal making.
Why do you do that?
Why did I do that?
Yeah, you
Wow.
could just buy and sell businesses yourself.
Yeah, because I was inundated with people asking me, nagging me to teach them how to do it. And I didn't have the time to go and speak in hotels. And I just thought it'd be really, really cool to kind of document all of my tips and tricks and my little ninja strategies and put them into a training program. And for me, what the real reason I did that was to create deal flow,
Ah,
because I would put that
smart.
out into the market. I would start partnering with students. They'd find a deal and think, well, okay, yep, I can buy the business, but if I partner with Carl and his team, maybe I can buy 5 or 6, and then I can just become the deal finder, the deal originator.
So you have some kind of coaching programs, books, whatever. How,
Yeah,
how can
all of
people
it.
find how can people find them and get more? Like, again, I feel like we got the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
This is such an exciting area, I think, particularly in today's day and age where
yeah,
the corporatism might be dying, but kind of these these smaller businesses that are expanding is getting to be a bigger part of the economy.
yeah.
And for me, it's always been kind of exciting to do these types of businesses. But how can people find more? Would you have where do they go?
Yeah, so I think the natural starting point for someone that's curious or interested or even extremely motivated to learn more about this is I've actually written a book, which is No Money Down: Business Buying Secrets.
So where do they go? How do they find you and all of the information we need here?
Absolutely. So if they want to have a copy of my book, if they go to carlsbook.com/James, there's a 20% offer discount for your listeners, James. So if
Oh,
they
for
want
my
to,
listeners, you're gonna give a
yeah,
20% discount. Are you
absolutely.
sure? So
Spreading the love. Yeah.
carlsbook.com, and it's a Carl with a C.
Carl with a C.
carlsbook.com
CARLSB.
slash James.
Absolutely.
You promise you'll give them a 20% discount.
Absolutely promise.
And what is it? Is it just they could just buy your book on Amazon, right? Or
No.
what else is there?
Nope, it's not available on Amazon. If they buy the book, then I have an introductory training course called the Dealmaker Launchpad. There'll be a special offer for that as well through that link if they want to ascend to that. And then if they're really super interested and they've really got the motivation to go and do deals and have that way of life, then they can enroll into my signature program, which is called the Dealmaker CEO, which is my proprietary 10-step business buying implementation system that people can buy businesses without investing their own money or having to run those businesses inside of 99 days.
And so carlsbook.com/James. Thank you for you didn't have to do that. Thank you for
You're
offering
welcome.
20% discount
Yeah,
to my listeners. I'm gonna get it because I kind of want to buy a bunch of businesses
go
now.
for it.
But will you come back on the podcast? I feel again like there's a lot more to talk about,
Anytime.
but
My pleasure.
and they can find you and again, thank you. Listeners can go to carlsbook.com/James, all of your stuff, 20% discount. I'm so glad you gave me this information. It's such a fascinating part of our economy. Like it makes everybody feel like their own, entrepreneur, business owner, private equity fund. And I'm glad you have the information out there. Although even just from this podcast, I feel like I could go and do it. So just listen to this podcast or check out carlsbook.com/James. Carl Allen, Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on the podcast.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you, James.
Thank you.